So what I love about kind of the Bitcoin development in general is how security focused it is, right? So if you look at other ecosystems, quote unquote digital assets or crypto, it's kind of like move fast, break things, see what works, and worry about security later. Whereas Bitcoin, it's like everything is slow, deliberate, and security focused. A lot of it, people say that Bitcoin's not innovating. It's mainly innovating to make what it already does well better. It's not trying to add new junky features. It's trying to say, okay, this is already great. How can we incrementally make this great thing even better, slowly and securely over time?
Alden, who provides equity research and investment strategies for clients, made her comments during a recent interview with Swan Bitcoin, where she argued that the bigger picture for Bitcoin is bright compared to the last 12 months, which saw Bitcoin fall more than 60% from its all-time high price. Alden claimed to be long-term structurally bullish on Bitcoin, and that the crypto asset's fundamentals were positive. The investment strategist honed in on Bitcoin's development as an indication for fundamentals, saying that Lightning Network, developing market adoption, and other on-chain indicators provided a greater value signal than the noise of price volatility. Lyn Alden further discusses her thoughts that why 200 countries maybe have really weak currencies relative to the dollar, and then all their dollar-denominated debt, and what's it like for people in these countries, and how does that tie into Bitcoin as the dollar strength is insanely aggressive compared to the previous periods against all others fiat currencies.
When we think of Bitcoin, we often think of it in a developed market perspective. We think of it as a United States person. We think of it as a European, for example. And people are like, why do you need Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin useful for? Whereas when you go to Argentina or Nigeria or dozens of other countries in the world, it's far more obvious why people need Bitcoin and why they might be interested in it, and why they might be interested in things like stable coins or things like ways to get US dollars, basically various types of harder money than whatever their local money is. And when the dollar gets super strong like it is now, the Fed is increasing interest rates, they're doing quantitative tightening, and they're trying to rein in inflation. And the problem is that there are so many countries in the world that buy commodities in dollars, right? So they're having a much harder time buying commodities. And then they also, a lot of them have dollar financing. They have dollar-denominated debts from European lenders, from American lenders, from Japanese lenders, from Chinese lenders. These just dozens and dozens of countries in the world get squeezed when we do this. And imagine you're a country and basically another country can dictate your monetary policy for you. That's kind of the world we live in. And what Bitcoin comes around and does and says, here's an alternative. It's new, it's volatile, it's poorly understood, but it doesn't change its monetary policy based on the decision of a handful of people in a room. The Fed is basically a council of elders that sits around and determines the price of money, right? And Bitcoin doesn't have that. It's an open network. And so right now, kind of for lack of a better alternative, all the countries in the world, and especially the periphery countries, are tied into the dollar system. And so they're at the whims of the Fed. They can loosen dollars, and that usually what happens is these countries go out and they take on a lot more dollar-denominated debt, but then that comes back to bite them when the Fed can then arbitrarily at any time increase interest rates, strengthen the dollar, and it's like all of your liabilities are being hardened. And so what Bitcoin comes around and does and says, here's an alternative, and here's something that's worth exploring.
Crypto venture capital funding will continue to decline through the first half of 2023, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. Rather, it is normalizing to a point that is rational. Investors don't want to catch a falling knife, so they are waiting for things to bottom out while also weighing broader macroeconomic concerns and the global recession risk. Purchasing Manager's indices, widely used gauges of the direction of economic activity, are her preferred way of tracking where Bitcoin might head next. The second half, however, Alden expects a higher global money supply growth, which would be good for Bitcoin. When the broad money supply rises, Bitcoin tends to do well. Now, before listening to Alden about Bitcoin globally saleable money, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more updates.
Bitcoin is becoming a top 5 or probably top 5, definitely top 10 globally saleable money, which means that if you have Bitcoin, especially in urban centers of the world, reasonably tech-savvy areas, you can find someone to take Bitcoin off your hands a lot easier than you can for many other fiat currencies of the world. I mean, it's out of the 100+ currencies, it's getting up there, and the trend is obviously heading higher. And I think we're kind of seeing the same thing when it comes down to these individual communities that are building up, right? I think those are more powerful than top-down attempted implementations. I think the more people in a community that understand Bitcoin, get educated on it, and then they see it firsthand. I mean, basically, it's like you need a critical mass of merchants accepting it, people wanting to use it, people saving in it, and then you get that circular community, and you go to an underbanked area especially, and they get the benefit right away, and I think it's powerful.
Alden noted that the current environment of historically low interest rates and surging inflation can persist throughout the rest of the decade, with currency depreciation taking hold, especially with regards to the US dollar, the world reserve currency. Investors may gain interest on digital assets as inflation destroys the purchasing power of fiat currencies. This dynamic supports Alden's bullish long-term prospects for Bitcoin USD. Note that Bitcoin historically also tends to perform well in times of economic growth and vice versa, Alden added. She was further asked about the pros and cons of Bitcoin in the new term and her Bitcoin prediction to coming years.
So I think obviously in the near term, it's rough. I mean, Bitcoin price is down. We're here at a conference and we're in a deep bear market. So thanks for everyone for coming out. Bitcoin's dead. Everybody go home. Just kidding. So obviously it's not great for price in the near term. And if anything, it's funny. We've seen in the past week, we've seen kind of a rally in a lot of assets because we had sort of a top in the dollar index. Inflation came in a little bit lighter than expected. And that allowed a lot of things like that Bitcoin's been somewhat correlated this year, like gold and the NASDAQ, for example. They've rallied hard. And Bitcoin probably would have rallied pretty significantly this week if not for this industry-specific debacle. So it kind of sucks, obviously, in the near term. But I think in the long term, it almost couldn't happen any other way. That this kind of malinvestment, this kind of leveraged casino stuff has to blow up. And it sucks for the users. But I think it's part of this. For example, you don't want to have everything in say, local currency. Maybe you don't want everything in Bitcoin. But longer term, I think Bitcoin is the innovation. And stablecoins are kind of this interesting thing that we've discovered along the way. And it opens up opportunities for the rest of the world, but it's a bridging tool.
So what are your opinions after watching this video? Kindly do tell us in the comment section below, and if you like, give this video a big thumb up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting information. Thanks for watching.